All right, so we are just going to work on making our sourdough. Here's my sourdough right here. As you can see, it's full of bubbles. It's very happy. I fed this 24 hours ago. So I do a 1 to 2 to 2 ratio, which is why I feed mine every 24 hours. You can also do a 1 to 1 to 1 ratio. I will pop those up on the screen for you. So my ratios I do for my sourdough, we're gonna have our scale. We're gonna put a clean jar on it. We're gonna zero it out. We are gonna go ahead and put 50 grams of sourdough starter in this jar. You can technically make sourdough without having a scale, but don't do that. It's just easier to have a scale. Just buy one. They're like $8 on Amazon. I can link one below for you guys. All right, so we want to get about 50 grams of sourdough starter. And so what's going to happen is you're always going to have more sourdough starter than what you're going to use, because it's just, if you don't, your sourdough will just keep growing and growing and growing. So this is what we have left. This is technically our discard. What I'm going to do, put a lid on this, put this guy into the fridge. There's tons of discard recipes out there that you can use. I'm going to go ahead and zero the scale out again, and I'm going to add 100 grams of water. That's our 1 to 2 to 2 ratio. We're going to use 50 grams of sourdough starter, 100 grams of water, and then we're going to do 100 grams of flour. But we want to take the sourdough starter, 50 grams, and 100 grams of water, and we're going to go ahead and mix those together. I'm using a wooden chopstick that we have. It works for me. You can use whatever. I read somewhere that you're supposed to use wood, so we have wooden chopsticks, so that's what I'm using. You can use a wooden spoon, whatever works best in your starter. My container doesn't do well. My starter container doesn't do well with anything too big, so. All right, now we're gonna zero the scale out again, and we're gonna add 100 grams of flour. Again, this is our 1 to 2 to 2 ratio. 50 grams of starter, 100 grams of water, and 100 grams of flour. I've got about 87 grams of flour in there. And I'm going to add in the rest. I've got 87 grams of flour, and I'm of all-purpose unbleached white flour. I'm gonna add a little bit of rye. You don't have to, but this is good for the starter. It just gives it a little bit more nutrients. Mine seems to really like it. Again, you don't have to. This is just what I do. So this is what we've done so far. Took 50 grams of sourdough starter, added 100 grams of water to it, and mixed that up. Then we added in 100 grams of flour. 87 of those grams were from all-purpose unbleached white flour. Make sure it's unbleached. If you can get organic, that's great, but you don't have to. Then we finished off our 100 grams by adding in a little bit of rye flour to give it a little bit more nutrients. Now, if you want to be technical, you can scrape the sides down with whatever you got, and you can keep reusing the same jar. I don't personally recommend reusing the same jar. I recommend switching jars and getting a fresh, clean jar every day. A lot of people reuse the same jar because it leaves the nutrients in there. I don't personally like to use the same jar because I think the jar gets messy. So this right here is our fed sourdough starter. I just use a lid and just gently place it on there. I don't screw it in, I don't do anything, it's just set right on top. And then this is just gonna sit on my counter, and then I will feed it again in 24 hours. That is how we fed our sourdough. Now this starter that's left over, I personally have some in my fridge already, so I'm just gonna go ahead and add to it. You can do that as well. Here's my starter that's been in the fridge. Technically, you can call it discard or unfed starter. Oh my goodness, I'm throwing things around in my kitchen. So here's our starter that's ready to go. This is a starter we're gonna make bread with later. Post another video of how I feed this. I fed this now. In 4 hours, I'll come back and that'll be ready to make bread. This is my starter that's been sitting in the fridge. I'm just gonna go ahead and add to it. You can do your amounts, any amount. You just want to at least have 30 grams of starter when you're making bread. This can be also, this is unfed starter. It sits in my fridge. It can sit in there for like at least 3 weeks, probably longer. You can make all kinds of stuff out of it. Pancakes, banana bread, rolls, or if you need starter, if this would die for some reason, or you mess it up, or you forget to keep enough out of for your recipe, if you want to give some to someone, take this out of your fridge and feed it. Take 30 grams, 50 grams. If you take 30 grams of starter, then you need to do 60 grams of water and 60 grams of flour. That's how I do it. You can also do a 1:1:1 ratio. A 1:1:1 ratio is equal parts, but then you have to feed it every 12 hours. I don't have time for that. So that's how you do it. We have our fed starter, it's gonna stay on the counter, and our discard that we added to, that's gonna go to the fridge. Come back later and see how we get our dough ready.